I'm Alex Marquardt in Mariupol, Ukraine, and this is CNN.
The breaking news we're following: Ukraine's President Zelensky now says 137 of his country's soldiers are dead after this first full day of the war, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. At least 316 Ukrainian soldiers have been injured in the fighting so far, according to the president. Let's bring in our chief national security correspondent, Jim Sciutto. He's joining us once again from Lviv in Ukraine. Those are big numbers for the first day.
It shows that this conflict getting bloody very quickly, and we're not even 24 hours in. And when you look at the president's statement, you can hear it's certainly a somber tone as he announces those figures that you mentioned already, Wolf. 137 Ukrainian soldiers dead, 316 wounded. A somber tone, and I might say a frustrated tone as well. He says that other NATO members are too afraid to let Ukraine in. He says, who is ready to guarantee Ukraine's accession to NATO? Honestly, everyone is afraid. As you know, going into this, Wolf, really that was considered a far-off prospect at best for Ukraine, but one that NATO was certainly not willing to take off the table. Neither was the U.S., despite that being Russia's key demand. The position had been, and it's been a consistent one, that is up to NATO allies and to applicants, in effect, to the alliance. Russia wanted to take that off the table. It was not considered something imminent by any means. But there you hear from the Ukrainian president some frustration about the aid they've received and haven't received, frankly. They feel like, and we've heard this a number of times, they are fighting alone. They're getting military assistance from the West, but they are not getting military support from the West. They feel alone, and when you hear him announcing those first figures, not even 24 hours into this invasion, it shows you just how bloody this is and the cost that they are now bearing.
Certainly is. All right, Jim Sciutto in Lviv for us. We'll get back to you as well. I want to go to Moscow right now. Our CNN contributor, former Moscow bureau chief for CNN, Jill Doherty, is joining us. Jill, we're seeing anti-war protests in Russia right now. How are Russians in general responding to Putin's attack?
You know, some of the polls are showing that among the general public, there is quite a bit of support, but there are people who do oppose this war, and we saw some of them on the streets of Moscow, St. Petersburg, and some other Russian cities today, protesting and immediately arrested, taken off the streets. It's obvious that the government doesn't want this to develop any type of momentum. But certainly the penalties for coming out against the government on the street or protesting are really pretty strong. So we're not seeing that much of it. But I think what is really interesting right now is, you have obviously the physical fighting in Ukraine, but here in Moscow, it's the economic war that's in focus. And today, even before President Biden gave his speech outlining those really draconian sanctions that they were going to be unfolding, President Putin gathered together with the Russian leaders, business leaders at the Kremlin, and he made an incredible case of saying that this war, I should say, he does not call it a war, but this conflict was unavoidable, and he really put it in existential terms. He said, it's hard to comprehend how our country could have continued to exist. So then he went on to say that obviously this is going to affect the economy, but stick together. We need unity and be patriotic and support our effort. And then that other kind of over-the-top statement came from the foreign ministry. Maria Zakharova, who's a spokesperson for the foreign ministry, putting it in those terms of saying, this is not a war, we're trying to stop a war. And in fact, she said, stop a global war. So this is really, the rhetoric that you're getting from the Kremlin. Part of it is for the world, but part of it is definitely for domestic consumption. Wolf?
Jill Doherty on the scene for us in Moscow. We'll get back to you as well. We're following all the major breaking news on the war in Ukraine. Much more of our special coverage right after this.
Certified Turbo.